I'm losing my mind. What do I do? Somebody help!
All right, everyone, ready to dive in. Today we are tackling e-commerce taxes.
Ooh, fun.
I know, right? Everyone's favorite. But seriously, we are going to try and make this as painless as possible today and hopefully learn some stuff along the way. We're going to be looking at Selldone today, which is a platform that promises to simplify e-commerce taxes.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig into this.
So to start, I guess I should come clean and say that when I first started selling online, I really had no clue about e-commerce taxes. It was a total jungle to me.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. Sales tax, VFT, GST, what does it all mean?
Exactly. Like, seriously, I thought VAT was some kind of fancy spa treatment.
Well, it's definitely not as relaxing, but it is important to understand these are taxes that are usually added to any online transaction, and the specific tax can vary depending on where you are and where your customer is located.
And here is where I made my first big mistake.
Let me guess. You tried to ignore them.
Bingo. I thought maybe if I just pretended they didn't exist, they would magically disappear. Spoiler alert, they did not.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our source material, ecommercetax.pdf, is very clear about this. The responsibility to collect and remit these taxes falls on the seller. No escaping it.
Which I learned the hard way, trust me.
Yeah.
So if I can give one piece of advice to anyone starting out, it's this. Keep meticulous records of every sale and the tax you collected.
Definitely. Good record keeping is essential.
Absolutely. And you know what else I wish someone had told me? Start small.
Yeah, focusing on a limited range of products and buyer locations at the beginning can make things so much easier.
Okay, so I have to ask, is there some kind of magical service out there that can just automate all of this?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Seriously, just poof, taxes done.
Well, while there is no magic button, there are tools that can help.
Like Selldone.
Exactly. But it's important to remember that even with these tools, you still need to understand the basics and classify your products correctly.
Right. So no matter what, we still have to put in the work.
That's the reality.
But at least Selldone can make that work a bit easier. From what I've seen so far, it seems like it takes care of a lot of the tedious calculations and stuff.
Yeah, things like product tax classification, territory-based calculations. It can even calculate the tax automatically during checkout.
That's amazing. And how does it compare to other platforms like Stripe Tax?
Well, with Stripe Tax, you have to manually define the tax for every single product.
Ugh, that sounds like a nightmare.
It can be, but Selldone handles a lot of that for you.
So it's all about making life easier for us sellers.
Exactly. Giving you peace of mind and freeing up your time so you can focus on running your business.
That's what I like to hear. All right, so we've talked about the basics of e-commerce tax and how Selldone can help. But there's another concept we need to discuss. Nexus.
Ah, yes. The dreaded nexus.
It sounds kind of scary, to be honest, like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Well, it's not that dramatic, but it is important. Essentially, nexus is about your connection to a tax jurisdiction where you do business matters. A lot.
So it's not just about where my business is physically located.
No, not at all. You see, there are two main types of nexus: physical nexus and economic nexus.
Physical nexus seems pretty straightforward. If you have employees, inventory, or an office in a particular location, you have physical nexus there.
Right. And then there's economic nexus. This is based on your sales activity in a specific region.
So even if I'm running my business from a beach in Bali, if I'm making a lot of sales to customers in California,
You could have economic nexus in California.
got it. So it's all about where your customers are, not just where you are.
Exactly. And once you hit certain thresholds, either in the number of transactions or total revenue, you're usually required to collect and remit taxes in that state or country.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about international sales? This document, ecommercetax.pdf, mentions something called effectively connected income, or ECI.
Right, ECI. That's particularly relevant for foreign entrepreneurs selling to customers in the U.S.
To be honest, I'm a bit lost.
Basically, it determines whether you, as a non-U.S. resident, need to pay U.S. income tax on earnings from those U.S. sales.
Okay, so if I'm, say, an artist in France selling my work to customers in the U.S. through my Selldone store.
You'd need to figure out if your income falls under ECI.
And how do I do that?
Well, that's where things can get a bit complicated. Factors like having inventory in the U.S. or spending a significant amount of time there can come into play. It's always a good idea to consult with a tax professional when dealing with international tax issues.
Good advice. Speaking of international sales, let's talk about marketplaces. You know, those giants like Amazon and Etsy.
Well, yes, the marketplaces.
Our source material points out that these marketplaces often handle tax collection and remittance for sellers, which sounds amazing.
It can be. It definitely simplifies things, especially for smaller sellers.
But I'm still ultimately responsible, right?
Yes, that's important to remember. The marketplace is like your co-pilot, but you're still the pilot. You're ultimately responsible for making sure everything is done correctly.
Okay, so I can't just completely hand over the reins.
Exactly. You need to stay informed and monitor what the marketplace is doing.
Got it. Trust but verify. Okay, let's move on to another fun topic, transfer pricing.
Transfer pricing. Sounds exciting, doesn't it?
Well, the definition in our source material is a bit dense. Something about allocating income between related entities in different tax jurisdictions.
In simpler terms, let's say your company in the US sells a product to your company in the UK for a very low price. This might look like you're trying to avoid paying higher taxes in the US.
Ah, I see. So transfer pricing agreements are there to make sure that profits are taxed in the right place.
Exactly. Where the value was created. It's all about fairness and transparency. And again, professional guidance is highly recommended in this area.
Okay, so we've covered nexus, ECI, marketplaces, and transfer pricing. I feel like my head is about to explode.
It's a lot to take in, I know, but it's all important stuff.
But now I want to talk about how Selldone actually helps us with all of this. Because reading through this source material, ecommercetax.pdf, it's clear that staying compliant is an ongoing process. We need to monitor things, generate reports, and keep up with any changes in tax laws. It's almost like a full-time job.
And that's exactly where Selldone comes in. It aims to streamline and automate as much of that as possible so you can focus on your business.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about how it works.
Well, first of all, Selldone has a step-by-step guide for setting up tax collection.
Like a roadmap for e-commerce tax.
Exactly. It starts with defining your default tax rule.
Okay, so that's like the baseline rate that will apply to most of my products.
Yes, but the cool thing is that Selldone allows you to create overrides for specific countries, states, or even regions. So if certain areas have different tax rates, you can easily adjust your settings.
Wow, so I can really customize it.
You got it. And you can also define different product tax classes.
What does that mean?
Well, for example, luxury goods might have a higher tax rate than essential items, so you can create separate tax profiles for different types of products.
So in my online clothing store, I could have a tax profile specifically for t-shirts and another for dresses.
Exactly. And you can even assign an icon to each profile for easy identification.
That's pretty neat. So once I have all my tax rules and product categories set up, what happens next?
Well, once everything is in place, Selldone automatically calculates and collects the tax during checkout. No more manual calculations or risk of errors.
Wow, that's a huge time saver. And can I go back and see exactly what tax was applied to each item?
Absolutely. You can view detailed tax calculations on every order page so you have full transparency and peace of mind.
Okay, so far so good. But what about reporting? How does Selldone help with that?
Well, Selldone has some really powerful reporting features that allow you to generate detailed financial reports. These reports break down the taxes collected for different periods, making it super easy to stay organized and file your taxes accurately.
Okay, so Selldone can help us set up our taxes, calculate them automatically, and even generate reports. That's pretty impressive.
It is. They've really thought of everything.
And you know what else is impressive? Just reading through this document, ecommercetax.pdf, has really changed my perspective.
Oh.
I used to think of tax compliance as this, annoying burden.
I think a lot of people feel that way.
But now I see it as a sign of growth. It means my business is doing well enough that I actually have to worry about these things.
That's a great way to look at it.
And with a tool like Selldone, I can feel confident about navigating those milestones.
Exactly. It's like having a safety net.
Okay, so before we wrap up, let's quickly review that checklist from the source material, just to make sure we've got everything covered.
Sounds good to me.
Step 1 is accessing the tax settings in Selldone, which we've talked about.
Step 2 is setting those default tax rules. So things like rates, shipping tax, and whether tax is included in the price or added at checkout.
Step 3, limit those service countries to only the places where you're actually doing business. Keep it simple.
Step 4, override those tax rules for specific territories. This is where you can account for any regional variations.
Step 5 is all about creating those handy tax profiles to categorize your products based on how they're taxed.
And then in step 6, you assign those tax profiles to each of your products, so everything is nice and organized.
Step 7 is reviewing those tax calculations on order pages. Always good to double check.
Step 8, generate those tax reports regularly. Stay on top of it.
Step 9, stay informed about those ever-changing tax laws.
And finally, step 10, don't hesitate to reach out to a tax professional for help.
Solid advice. All right, so there you have it, folks. Our 10-step checklist for e-commerce tax success, thanks to ecommercetax.pdf and the awesome features of Selldone.
We hope you found this deep dive helpful.
Definitely. And remember, tax compliance doesn't have to be scary. With the right tools and knowledge, it can actually be pretty manageable.
It's all about empowering yourself.
And on that note, we'll leave you with a question to ponder. What's one thing you learned today that you'll implement in your business right away? Think about it, take action, and as always, happy selling.